In this bass lesson, you're going to learn how to start mastering chords by knowing exactly what notes are in the chord other than just the root. Hi, I'm Luke from becomeabassist.com, and by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to look at a chord chart or lyric sheet and make bass lines with notes that go beyond just the roots of the chords. You'll even get some real examples of bass lines that do this exact thing. Welcome to part 2 of this chord series for bass, where you're learning all about chords, how they're made, and more importantly, what can you play over them. In lesson 1, we talked about the most important part of being a bass player, obviously finding and nailing the roots of the chords, and the one exception to that rule when it comes to chord roots. Super important, so if you don't know how to do that yet, be sure and backtrack and check out the first video of the series. Today though, we're going to go beyond the roots, and to do that we have to start looking at how chords are put together, the kind of architecture of them, and how you can use that information to create your own bass lines, melodies, riffs, licks, fills, all that great stuff. Now, as bass players, we're the ones who are outlining the chords, usually one note at a time. And if you know how to do that well, you'll always be serving the music and you'll always be in demand as a bassist. There's so many good benefits doing this, so let's jump in. Just about every chord you come across, even the complicated ones, can be condensed down to 3 notes, also called a triad. And there are 4 main kinds of triads. You've got your major, minor, augmented, and diminished triads. You've probably heard a ton of major and minor chords in your life. You've most likely even played a ton of them before. Whenever someone talks about a major chord or a minor chord, most of the time they're talking about major and minor triads. They're the exact same thing, just different ways of saying it. Now, every triad uses 3 notes. Obviously, triangle, tricycle, triad, 3 notes. So we have a root, which you already know how to find if you've watched video 1 of this series, but they also contain a third and a fifth. For example, an A major triad looks like this. This is our root, this note is our third, this note is our fifth. Now this trips some people up sometimes. The second note of the chord is called a third, and the third note is called a fifth. What's going on here? Well, it all comes down to chords and scales. I'll give you an example. This A major triad, it works really well with the A major scale. Makes sense, right? You've got major triad, major scale. Now, if you look at the notes in a major scale, there's 7 individual notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the next note is the same as the first note. Now these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are where we name our notes from. Our first note is the root, the 1. The third note of the scale is the third of our chord, and the fifth note of our scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is the fifth of our chord. So we get our root, our third, and our fifth. Now hopefully that's clear for you, but if not, just leave a comment below and I'll try my best to help you out. There are a bunch of different ways to outline this major triad on bass. There's this one that we've been using. There's another one spread across 3 strings. But you can also play it like this. Yeah? 2 notes on the E string and then the fifth on the A string. Now these are all super helpful shapes to know, because if you know them, you can just plug them in and always know you're going to be set, always playing good note choices, yeah? Now there are tons of bass lines and ideas that use this too. Think about Elvis Presley's Hound Dog. The line in the song looks like this. It's just a major triad, 1, 3, and 5, and then it goes to the next chord. Yeah? In fact, this entire line is made up of just major triads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same shape. Back to the first one. Yeah? All major triads and super fun. And by the way, major triads are almost always just written as the note name with nothing after it. For example, if you see a C, chances are you're playing a C major triad. Just B flat by itself, B flat major triad. By the way, if I'm moving a bit too quick, or if you just want help remembering all this stuff, that's totally understandable. Be sure to download my free chord cheat sheets pack. It's everything you need to know about these chords condensed into a single PDF file. There's also handy tables you can use to make sure that the notes you pick for your bass lines are going to work 100% of the time. There's even a scale catalog you can use to instantly know what scales are going to work over nearly any chord. So to get the pack, just click the link in the description, fill the form out on that page, and I'll send it to you 100% free. Let's move on to minor triads now. Once again, we've got plenty of different ways of playing them. There's across 3 strings like this. Yeah, there's 1 note on your starting string and 2 on the A string, or you can play 2 notes on the E string and then 1 on the A. I like this one because everything's in position, but then again, so is that one as well. Now, where the major triad had a major third, the minor triad is just 1 note different. We just take that major third down to a minor third. Yeah? And of course, we get that minor third from the minor scale. The exact same concept, just applied to the minor chord. I'm sure you've heard millions of minor chords in your lifetime, and of course these triads get outlined in bass lines all the time, but one that stands out to me is the very first thing the bass plays in Bob Marley's Could You Be Loved. It goes, yeah, straight up minor triad right at the start, pardon me, at the start of the bass line. It couldn't be more obvious. 1, 3, and 5. Classic. Now, minor chords are expressed on the page in a couple of different ways. The super common ones are just the chord root followed by a lowercase m or a minus symbol. So you might see A flat with a minus after it. That means A flat minor triad. If you see A flat with a lowercase m, it means the exact same thing. F with a lowercase m, F minor. G sharp with a minus sign, G sharp minor. I'm sure you get the deal. Now, just knowing the major and minor triad is enough to put you in a prime position, and it'll get you through hundreds or even thousands of songs. For example, the majority of the verse bass line to Stevie Wonder's Master Blaster is just made up of major and minor triads. Check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4. C minor triad. A flat minor triad. F major triad. And then not such a triad there. Just like that. So just a mixture of major and minor triads. You get the idea. By the way, you don't even need all the notes of the chord sometimes. So many country bass lines just rely on the root and the fifth, and then they let the harmony player just kind of take care of the rest of the notes. But it's not just country. For a great example of a bass line that just uses roots and fifths, check out Hotel California by Eagles. It goes like this, just in case you haven't heard it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. But we have B minor, F sharp major, A major, E major, G major, D major, E minor, F sharp major. And it's just roots and fifths for everything. How cool is that? Next we get the 2 less common types of triads, the one with the kind of scary sounding names, the augmented and the diminished triads. Don't worry though, they're not really that scary. You just won't come across them very often, but it pays to be prepared when you do. Let's start with the augmented triad. I was trying to think of a good example of this chord, and the only really clear one I can think of is the very first chord of the Beatles' Oh Darling. Yeah, the introductory chord right before the first verse is an augmented chord. It sounds kind of like this. Yeah? As always, there are a few different ways to play it. Across 3 strings works well. There's also this way, and you can also play it like this. Just like that. Now, one way you could potentially think of this chord is being just a major triad, but the fifth, this note right here, is taken up 1 fret or a half step or a semitone depending on where you come from. So major chord, augmented chord, major chord, augmented chord, major chord, augmented chord. Now, there aren't too many bass lines that specifically spell out an augmented chord. If you do know of any, let me know in the comments. I'd be super curious to kind of check them out. But if you're talking about how these are written in kind of charts and things like that, there's a few different options. The first you'll commonly see is a little plus sign after the root. So C plus can mean C augmented. The other way is aug or AUG after the root name. So C aug would be a C augmented triad. Some charts will also sometimes say sharp 5, but that's not super common. The same rules apply to every other note. B flat plus means B flat augmented, C sharp aug is obviously C sharp augmented triad. I'm sure you get the picture. All right, let's do our last triad. It's the diminished triad. It's gonna look and sound like this. Yeah, not the prettiest sound in the world, right? Pretty dark and ominous, and there's a couple of ways to play it. Now this one kind of makes the most sense to me, but you could also play it like this. Or if you really wanted to, you could play it over 3 strings. But I probably wouldn't recommend this one. It's kind of a bit of a pain. Now, another way to think of the diminished triad is like a minor chord, but with the 5th, this note right here, taken down 1 fret. Here's our A minor chord, A, C, E, and A diminished chord would be this, A, C, E flat. Our 5th is taken 1 step down. Now this chord is often used as a kind of passing chord to get from one chord to another. For a really good example of this, check out Oasis's Don't Look Back in Anger. Towards the end of the pre-chorus, when you hear the lyrics, take that look from off your face, it's a classic passing diminished chord. This one is usually written with a little circle, kind of like this, almost like a degree symbol. So a D with a little degree sign is a D diminished triad. Other times it's also written out as a dim or dim. So for example, D dim would be the same as a D diminished chord, D diminished triad. Now, if you really want to get your head around all this stuff, I highly recommend you download my free chord cheat sheets pack. In it, you'll get all of this series' key takeaways condensed into a really quick and easy to understand PDF. It's got all the shapes for all the chords in this series, as well as the inner construction of how they're made, and handy little charts so you can see exactly which notes are in which chords. It'll make choosing notes for your bass lines or improvisations, licks, fills, riffs, all that kind of stuff easy as pie. Just click the link in the description and I'll send it to you 100% free. To recap though, you learned how to use your knowledge of chords to go beyond just playing the roots. You learned that the 4 main types of triads were the major and minor, which were the more common, and then the less common augmented and diminished triads. You learned how to play them, as well as how they're written, and you got some pretty cool examples along the way. At least I think they're pretty cool. Thank you so much for watching. It's really good to have you with me. Make sure and download the chord cheat sheets pack. I'd love to see you in there as well. I'm Luke from becomeabassist.com, and hopefully I'll see you in video 3 of this series.